Hey, what's up everybody? Roy from the Tea Garden Historical Society here. Of course, Jesse behind the camera. Yeah, and today's Monday, February 23rd. We had an awesome day here at the Tea Garden Historical Society. We want to thank everybody who came out today. And anyone who missed today, we're going to run through some of the items that we had on display. Of course, our week's topic today was Columbiana County History, Part 1. So we're going to start with the General Morgan's surrender in West Point, Ohio. Pretty classic story right there. This is one of the biggest Civil War stories that Columbiana County has to offer. One of the more northernmost actions during the Civil War. Of course, we got our poster there from our Revamping History documentary. Of course, you can find on YouTube. And then we're going to start over here. We got the Army-Navy Journal, 1864. It's got a little article in there about the General Morgan's surrender. Again, anybody has any more information about any of this, anyone wants to chime in, leave messages below. Leave comments below. Yeah, let us know what you think of these pieces. Anybody has any more information about this, add to the story here. Super awesome. We love collecting old newspapers from Timothy Hughes. Great company there if you're ever looking to buy old newspapers. Check them out, find them on the internet there. Of course, one of our favorite pieces we're going to have for our General Morgan display here today is the last night and day of John Morgan's raid. Some classic literature right there from the early 1900s. That's an original copy right there, super hard to find. But of course we have some other copies of it, the 1963 version right there of the John Morgan's raid. Pretty much the same story inside, might be a little bit differences here and there. And then we have a little selection of some David Edwards books. Yeah, we used a lot of these books for the information when we made our documentary about the General Morgan surrender. Great information, awesome pieces, especially one like photographs of the Confederate and Union officers that were participating in this event. You can see all kinds of pictures of the people involved. It shows some of the artillery that the company was using, plus tons of other information here. One book there about the John Hunt Morgan escaping from the Ohio Penitentiary. Of course, that's where he was taken after he surrendered, right here in Columbiana County, Ohio. Another version of the surrender story right there that came out of the Morning Journal back in 2013. And another book here called Morgan's Raid into Ohio. There's a book there by R. Max Guard. Of course, R. Max Guard, legendary historian in this area. He's done all kinds of stories about everything from the Sandy and Beaver Canal to, of course, the Morgan's Raid. Of course, this book, we even have the autograph there of R. Max Guard. Super cool. This book came out in 1963. That was a big year. They were doing a lot of stories, a lot of things coming out about General Morgan in the early 60s right there, including these two plates right here, commemorative plates. I don't think these are good for eating off of, but look pretty cool for display right there. And you see the same design, but one's blue, one's black. Morgan's Raid, West Point, Ohio, 1963 on these pieces. And then if anybody knows more about these wooden nickels, leave comments below. We're still trying to learn about these things. We've seen wooden nickels before, but usually they were actually in the shape of a coin. But these are pretty interesting. They look like actual dollar bills there. If anybody knows any more information about any of this stuff that we've showed so far, feel free to leave comments below. We're still learning about this stuff. We love hearing people's opinion on this. So that's the Morgan's Raid display. Again, you want to learn more about this, check out Revamping History's documentary, General Morgan's Surrender in West Point, Ohio. Find it on YouTube. We put these videos up for free. All right, and again, thanks a lot for watching so far. We're going to keep this party going. So let's check out one of my favorite stories, one of the big stories to happen right here in Columbiana County, Ohio. Of course, we're going to talk about the Pretty Boy Floyd story. If anybody knows any more information about Pretty Boy Floyd, leave comments below. If anyone's ever heard any stories about maybe somebody meeting Pretty Boy Floyd along the way, leave comments below. So let's start with the old newspaper right here. We got the Plattsburgh Daily Press. We see this newspaper came out in 1934. It's got a little article right there about Pretty Boy Floyd and his partner Adam Richetti. At this point, Pretty Boy Floyd's been killed. Adam Richetti's been captured. We even see in some of the description it says, public enemy number 1, riddled with bullets at a farm near East Liverpool, Ohio. Of course, back then they thought he was riddled with bullets. A lot of different people's opinions on how many times he was shot. But of course, we've learned through a lot of forensics, a lot of other people telling us a lot of information that Pretty Boy Floyd was actually shot just 2 times. But he had a bunch of bullet holes in him because a bullet went through the arm, came out of his arm, went into the torso, came out that way. So of course at that point we're looking at about 4 or 5 holes already. Another bullet came through the opposite way. So 2 bullets, multiple holes. So yeah, of course conspiracy theories pop up all over the place. But if anyone knows more about this, leave comments below. We'd love to learn more. We'd love to hear people's opinion. Of course, we got a true detective there from 1935. Super awesome. You know, people love reading these comic book style magazines back in the day. That one there about the smashing of Pretty Boy Floyd. Time magazine. Of course, everybody knows about Time magazine. Classic right there. 1934, there's a little bit of an article about Pretty Boy Floyd inside there. And then a couple of my favorite pieces right here. We got some G-Men trading cards. We got 3 of them right here. Of course, Pretty Boy Floyd being featured there. The picture they're showing there, the action that happened at the Conkle Farm. Yeah, just outside of, like in the Beaver Creek State Park area. Yeah, the Conkle Farm, that's where Pretty Boy Floyd is actually killed by the Bureau of Investigations, the BOI. We have 3 cards here. We used to have 4. But we donated one of these to the Police Museum in East Liverpool. Yeah, we want to thank Kelsey down there at the East Liverpool Police Museum. He was in our documentary, told us all kinds of information about Pretty Boy Floyd. And he was kind enough to give us some of these pictures here. Charles Arthur Floyd, almost like a little baseball card style. Super cool. Has a little bit of information about him on the back there. Nice image there, you can see what he looked like. Also, a super awesome copy of a wanted poster from back in the day. $5,000 would have been a lot of money at that time. Even today, yeah. And then some great information here. We got fingerprints, talking about his description, some of the aliases, some of the news he's made in the past. Of course, he's got tied up in the Kansas City massacre. And then we see this little badge there, and of course these cards. This was probably an attempt, you know, to get the younger generation to go along with law enforcement, to have more respect for police officers, not to become people like Pretty Boy Floyd in the long run. Of course, that was the big fear of law enforcement, that they wouldn't just have one Pretty Boy Floyd, but they'd have hundreds of them running around. Great documentary right there. The Last Run of Pretty Boy Floyd from David Dunlap. That features Tim Brooks, Kelsey Hedrick, and a few other folks that are just experts on the topic. So again, if you want to know more about Pretty Boy Floyd, get a hold of Tim Brooks, Kelsey Hedrick, maybe the East Liverpool Historical Society. These folks are experts on the story. We have one book there, the Pretty Boy book, Michael Wallace. All right, so far it looks like we've checked out some General Morgan surrender stuff. We've seen a little bit about Pretty Boy Floyd. Again, anybody knows more information about this, or if you have any questions of any kind, leave comments below, get a hold of us. We love to answer questions. We love to learn more. So let's keep going here. Let's check out what else we had this week. Of course, this week was Columbiana County History, Part 1. Now let's check out a little bit of history about Salem, Ohio, and some of our digitizations we do here at the Tea Garden Historical Society. We have flashbacks of Salem history. This book, full of information. Dale Schaefer, another one of these classic historians from Salem, Ohio area. And then a little bit of information here about Strotter Brown that we actually had out here last week. If anybody came out last week, you would have seen Heather Smith's presentation about the Underground Railroad, some of the local history. And this is just another classic story right here, the Strotter Brown story. A slave who makes it all the way up to Salem and then goes even beyond, but ends up coming back to Salem because he loved the area so much. He's known for making those awesome wicker baskets. Got some photos right there of some folks in the Salem, Ohio area. CDVs, some cabinet cards, of course a postcard there. That's one thing, we love to collect old CDVs and old photos here at the Tea Garden Historical Society. And then of course, we always have to have our section set up here about our digitizations. One of the big things we do here at the Tea Garden Historical Society is we take old books, these old books that are falling apart, we scan them in, we create PDFs out of it so everybody can get the information anytime in the future about all this. Of course, some folks have kindly donated. We accept donations to help keep the digitizations going so we can keep creating these PDFs, get the information out there. We don't make any money off it, but we put the information out there so anybody can learn about this stuff as long as you're interested. So again, I appreciate everybody hanging out here today, checking out our display. Columbiana County, week 1. Of course, next week we're going to change up the tables a little bit. So leave comments below. What kind of history do you want to learn about in Columbiana County? Keep an eye on all of our social media sites. We're going to make all kinds of posts. And again, we appreciate everybody hanging out and watching this video. Have an awesome day, y'all.